I've borrowed a bunch of other people's work online and kind of come up with some schematics of my own, although I've modified these slightly along the way. A couple of little adventures that I came up with was, let me see, yeah, here. To get access to pin 46, where are you? Oops, no, wrong. I'm in the wrong. Where are you, you bugger? Yeah, trying to navigate through the phone camera and the board. Yeah, so pin not 46, 107. Okay, comes out here and scraped some of the thing off. Cut where the solder pad was, through the board point. So cut that free and then scrape the solder back, but I just could not get the solder to stick to the copper, and I was getting really quite worried that I was knackering this up and that I was ending up bridging everything. Fortunately, I just about managed to get it stuck down without it earthing, so there's not a lot of solder under there, but it's enough, and then I sort of welded it down with some hot glue to make sure that it's not going to shift. Yeah, so some modders recommend, because you have to sort of take that pin up. Now, some people take the pin up. I can't do that. I'm just not good enough. Some people recommend cutting through here to take it off of Earth. If this is bridged to the Earth line, then it's NTSC. If this is bridged to the Earth line, it's PAL. I think that's right. I think this is the NTSC. I can't remember. Yeah, PAL and NTSC. It's either that or it's English and Japanese. No, it can't be, because the Genesis has this one bridged, and Mega Drive has this one bridged. So that, yeah. So this is NTSC if it's bridged to Earth, and this is PAL if it's bridged to Earth. So some modders were sort of saying, cut this line here, and then solder lines on, scrape back some of the copper. So that's what I tried at first. The problem then was I then discovered this. Now, I can't make out what that is. My eyesight isn't good enough. My magnifying glass isn't good enough. So I thought that was actually a cut in the track, which is why I went for this one in the first place, because a lot of people say, "Oh, leave that one be," and then you can actually link into JP3 up here. Jumper point 3. Just cut the Earth point off. But because of that, that's why I went for this way around of doing it. However, when I discovered actually that just felt like some varnish splatter. And actually the continuity was fine. And also, in my efforts to try and solder a wire onto it, again, just fiddly as hell, I discovered I'd actually bridged that track again. So in the end, I just left that in place, cut the Earth trace there, which links that trace to this Earth pad, and then I was able to solder through the board point here. I put some hot glue on there, of course, just to hold everything down as well. So the orange cable is the language setting, and I just sort of left that running there so that I could test continuity, sort of bare wire, so I can test continuity back to the pin. That's all good, and then the same with this one. I could test continuity back to the pin, and that's all good. There you go. So it's going to sit kind of there, and in the side of the case, it'll look quite smart. So in the side of the case about there. Now, the bottom of the lower half of the case will actually, the upper edge of it will form the lower edge of the slot that these go into. But as long as I can keep it nice and neat and tight, then there's no need for any glue on these. These are press fit switches for panel use, so it shouldn't need anything more than just clicking into place. However, if they wobble, then I might put a little bit of hot glue in around the top, just to just to hold them in. I'm kind of tempted actually to put some spade female connectors onto the wires rather than soldering them directly to these tabs, but I'm just debating how much value there really is in that. I mean, if we need to take the thing apart again in the future, then the best thing would be to just cut the wires and then resolder them together again, or desolder them from the points. Don't know. I shall have to make that decision. So that's what we're doing. So that's where the region settings are coming out from. The other mods we're doing is the 10 megahertz overclock and system freeze, and both of those come off the Motorola chip, the 68000. 10 megahertz, of course, is well known for being completely stable. Some games won't run with overclock at all. Some won't boot with an overclock and need the freeze in order to get through the title sequence, pause the game, switch on the overclock, and then unpause the system so it can be played. But anyway, that is pin 15. That's pin 15, and that's pin 19. Pin 15, the pad goes through underneath the board to a connector, a trace rather, that then comes out to this point. Now, loads of people pull the pin. They literally lift the pin. Now, I'm just not capable of that. I'm not that good. I'm too cack-handed for that by far. However, what I am is able to follow a trace. So I went under the board, and lo and behold, there's the little trace connector, and this point is the pad, so that cable connects directly to the pin, and at the other end of it is that point that I just showed, which is the feed from the system clock. And so the system clock comes in on the top of the board, goes down through this hole, along here, and then into the pin. What I've done is I've cut that. It doesn't matter if you cut this one, that's the earth, this thicker bit there, that's the earth, which is all this here, so you can be quite cack-handed and it's not a problem. And as you see, it just goes all the way around. And so anyway, so that's scratch cut there, and then this was soldered onto that point, this was soldered onto that point, so this orange wire connects directly to pin 15 on the Motorola 68000, and this one connects to the system clock, the 7 megahertz system clock. I flip that over, and there we go. So that is then going to use the typical 10 megahertz overclock circuit and an on switch. That's this one, boom boom. And as you can see, it connects. So pin 4 goes to the 10 megahertz oscillator. So pin 4 on the oscillator goes to this pin there. The brown wire, which goes to the pin on the processor, in other words, where you're trying to feed the clock to, that goes onto the center pin. And then the factory clock, which is the brown and white cable, that's going to go onto this pin there. So the idea is if it's clicked over like that, the factory clock pulse is coming up the brown and white wire and then going back down directly into the pin 15 on the processor via the brown wire. However, if it's switched over in this way, then pin 4 on the oscillator will come feed that and then send its signal down the brown wire. I'm going to be using green, I think, for... no, I'm not. What am I going to use? I can't remember what I was going to use. Darn it. might be blue. I basically cannibalised some Cat5 cable for the solid core because it's fine, perfectly good at carrying 5 volts. In fact, they can carry 12 volts, 15 volts quite high. More than adequate for carrying the quarter odd watt of power or whatever that's going through it. No big deal. Anyway, so that is going to fit kind of sort of here at the back. That will be the factory clock, and that will be the overclock. There's the oscillator. The oscillator, I'm just going to pop a little bit of insulating electrician's tape just here. I could just put it as a blob of hot glue in the middle here, and then just stick the oscillator straight on top. Pow, just like that. But I really want it kind of a bit more that way, and then you've got those pads there, and hot glue's insulating. I mean, I've used it there and all over the place, and it should be fine. But nonetheless, if I need to follow any of these tracks out, I want to be able to lift it. Some people are sticking them directly to the top here. Doable, ugly as hell, but perfectly acceptable. However, again, I'd rather keep it clear of the processor itself. Now, the other thing is some people put it here. However, I haven't, because there's one thing that I don't know if I'm the first person to do this, but I haven't found anyone posting videos for this. Pin 19 on this package, the DIL package, it's pin 17. That is the leg you want to connect to, and that needs to be sent to earth in order to pause the system. Now here's the thing. Again, there's no way I can get in at that. I'm just not good enough. My tools aren't good enough, and I'm not good enough. My eyesight's crap. The steadiness of my hand is not so great. I mean, I bought a new soldering iron, and it's not bad, but it's hardly a Hacko solder station. So I just can't do it. So I then looked underneath and found that actually that it's, I forget which one it is now actually. It's this one. Okay, yeah, so it's there. So it follows this trace round, and it comes to this little group here. And that little group is, let's turn that around so you can see it, there. And as you can see, I put a pin in. Now, I haven't hot glued this in. I'm just about to put a blob of hot glue in, but I thought I'd shoot this video first so you can actually see the point that it comes out at. And again, it's very easy to test. And all you have to do is put a probe on that, put a probe on the pin, and if you've got continuity, you've got the right one. Easy peasy. So this green wire, that's going to go into the feed for this on-off switch. Just into the outside there. Center pin to earth as usual. And then that is paused. So when pin 19 goes to earth via this switch, system pauses, and that's the system open. Right, so there you go. That is, as far as I'm aware, my own unique discovery. Again, I've tested all the continuity, just strip a little bit of copper off the ends. You can see it, yeah, there you go. A little bit of copper off the ends, test the continuity to the correct pin. Now, I'm going to use some electrician's tape with the hot glue on top of that. Even though tape's glue will eventually let go, once all the legs are soldered up to the earth points and so on, that's not really going to move about very much. And it means that if I do have to pull it all apart, then it's just a case of unsoldering the legs and then peeling up the electrician's tape rather than risking pulling up tracks. So for example, if I need to follow any of these tracks for any reason, I can still do that.